And to me, that is what the ancients meant by the purpose of existence and the law of existence. And I know that if we ask questions, we can go into more detail about what I have been speaking about, or something which is important in your understanding and your theology and philosophy of existence. And we can spend the rest of the time here unless someone, well, just like she asked a certain question and brought out this particular answer, raise your hands and ask some questions. Okay.
Param Guru Dave, could you tell us some techniques to help us remain balanced 24 hours a day? 24
hours a day is a hard thing to do down here in this body, because when you're in a state of pure balanced self-conscious awareness, you're not functioning physically. In other words, you're not even breathing when you're in what they call samadhi, or true balanced self-conscious awareness. There are 4 states of awareness that you can be in. There's this state of awareness which is called the world of Asia by the Egyptians and the Hebrews, and called Bengali by the Hindus. And this is everything that you're aware of from here to the quasars and back, and even beyond this. Then there's another world. This is a world of what is called Ida, or Yadzira. Depends upon which ones that you're speaking to. And this is a world of the astral worlds, the spiritual worlds. I usually refer to it as all astral, though the spiritualists don't like this particular manner of expressing it, since they divide the astral world into many fields and areas of existence. But this world is considered that which rotates to the left, as the Bengalic world is that which rotates to the right. And this is another world, the world of sleep, the world of the dead. And then there's a world of balance between the two of this. They call this the world of Sasamana, the world of balanced self-conscious awareness, the world of Braya. And this is a world that you have existence. For instance, let's explain what these two worlds. There's a 4th world, and that's the world of God consciousness. The balanced world is called Christ consciousness. But the Bengalic world, you all know what this is. This is what you're aware of here right now. The Idic world is when you're asleep, all the things that you're aware of. And many people, many here, because you are here, because your minds are awake, you go to what I call the 5th plane of the astral world. Here you have a lot of schools, you have all kind of places and beings who are well educated and can teach you the things that you wish to know. Many scientists get their ideas from here when the time is ripe on the face of the earth for these things to come through. As you remember, when the telephone was created, there were so many people who created the telephone in so many different parts of the world that it's really uncertain as to who did create the telephone. In the United States, they said Bell created it, but there was somebody else that created it about the same time in the United States, and they had an enormous lengthy court case to find out who really was the beginner of the creation of the telephone. It was discovered in almost every part of the world simultaneously. So there's a time which comes through. This is from the 5th plane in the astral world, and this is where the intellectually alive and people move and enjoy themselves. You may not remember everything that goes on there, but this is where your intuition about things that are real take place, and it helps in your understanding. And then you have the balance between these two worlds, which produces a sasamanic state of awareness. Now, in the sasamanic state of awareness, in the world of Braya, in the world of balance, you don't have form like you have here. In Ida and Bengali, in the astral worlds, the world of the dead, the world of the living, you have form. You have existence. And they say this is a world of Maya, the world of illusion. Where you go over there, they don't know nothing either. And it is very difficult to express truth there. You can easier find the truth here than you can over there. And the truth exists in Braya. Now, in the Sasamana in Braya, you have this. What is love? Tell me how big it is, how high it is, how wide it is. You see, you're beginning to have a problem. How much does it weigh? Love exists. It exists in the Braya world in its pure form, not the love that most people are aware of down here on the face of the earth. That's 1/12 of one's existence. And that is like, they tell me that 60% of all marriages fail. So this is a rather poor expression of love. This is, you might as well close your eyes if you're a woman and stand a group of men up, come to the first one, heads I marry him, tails I don't. Heads I marry him, you've got just as much a chance of success as looking at him and marrying him. So this is your physical world. I'm talking about real love. Once upon a time there was a young man, many, many years ago, back in the 1920s actually, and didn't have too much money. He got married, and the minister, to help the people out in his congregation, offered $10. Now $10 was, you'd buy quite a bit for them. You could hardly carry the groceries home that $10 would buy you. And so he offered $10 to the one who gave the best expression of what love was. So he won the prize, and I memorized it. He says, love is something divine willed by the hand of God. Now this told you a lot. When you got finished, you knew no more about what love was than when you started. And this is what most religion does for you. It reminds me of something that actually took place when Spain was ruler of the high seas and was coming over here into conquering this new world. They got caught in a heavy storm. And the captain, he had important cargo on board. He wanted to know, where he was at. The only other educated man on board the ship was a priest. So he called the priest into his cabin, told him what the problem was, that they're going into shores where there was a lot of, like in the Caribbean, where you had a lot of shoal water, and they could tear the bottom out of his boat. And the priest looked at him, and he thought for a moment, and he solved the problem for the captain. He says the water in this area was as deep as God made it. It was the absolute truth, but it didn't do the captain any good. So this is what all of you have found out in your realization of existence. You have a lot of theological truths which you know is true, but it's not very practical. You have a problem and you want to know, what is the probable outcome of this problem? What should you do? How should you do it? What should you go about? This is where the law of symbolic association comes in. Law of astrology are interpreting your dreams. And this is where, with balanced self-conscious awareness, where you don't have form as here, but where you have a state of awareness, where this state of awareness can help express and help solve the problems that exist in both other worlds. Now you have a fourth world. Remember the three worlds: the waking world, the sleeping world, the world of Christ consciousness, and then you have the world of God consciousness. Now how to explain to you God consciousness, since I haven't met anybody who had God consciousness. Yogananda did not, who was in God consciousness. But this is as close as you can express God consciousness. Right now, each one of you are sitting in a seat, aware of everybody else, aware of me, and aware of this building and everything else. In God consciousness, you are this building, you're everyone else aware of you. And so, all things exist simultaneously in God consciousness. And maybe if you met such a being, you wouldn't know he was here anyhow. And so, has this helped you in any way? Or if you make your statement again, and I'll go on.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Watcher on the Hill and what type of balance that would afford us?
The Watcher on the Hill?
The technique, was that the one you described that Yogananda was constantly in the state of?
Yes, he was constantly in a state where he was sort of the Watcher on the Hill. The Watcher at the medulla oblongata was as the center of God consciousness, and he realized that he was an actor. So long as you remember all the time that you are an actor or an actress, and that you're on the stage of life, and move towards balanced self-conscious awareness, but enjoy being you. Remember, your personality is not perfect. Everyone has the same basic symbolisms, but they're arranged differently. No one is greater than anyone else. No one is less than anyone else. I've seen a moron who had tremendous ability at juggling things and who the animals all seemed to listen to. He had an enormous amount of affinity with the animals, and if an animal was sick or anything, they seemed somehow or other, had a thorn in his toe, as you might say, to look him up. They somehow seemed to know that he would take care of them. He even hypnotized people and then come running to me because he didn't know how to bring them out. But be you, dare to be you. But remember, don't carry grudges, don't carry hatred. Let me tell you what happens if you're angry. They take a man and he's happy, you know, they play music, you know, and remember an actor has to really be an actor and he has to feel what he's feeling, otherwise you know he's a fraud and he's not acting very good. So they take 10 cc's of his blood, they run through a centrifuge, get rid of the red blood cells. Now we got the white plasma, and now they make him mad. This is about half an hour later. He's mad as they can possibly make him. He's actually feeling this madness. They take 10 cc's of his blood, get rid of the red blood cells, and now they take 2 guinea pigs. They're brothers from the same line. When he was happy, they put the 10 cc's into the guinea pig, nothing happens. When he was mad, they take the 10 cc's, put the plasma into the guinea pig, no more guinea pig, it's dead. Now the reason you live is because you have greater mass than that and you can survive while the cells are being killed into your body. And when you don't like somebody, you're producing stress and disturbance in your body. Remember, if somebody's done something real bad to you and you hate them, forgive them. When you forgive yourself of him, he's not necessarily being forgiven of you, you're free. And if you're free, you're no longer destroying yourself. So it's wise to forgive. Even Jesus on the cross forgave everybody. He forgave himself of all of them, so he was free of them. But the world was not free of the sins which they had done in crucifying an avatar. That was an entirely different thing. But dare to be you. Enjoy being you. But notice, have your teeth, your fangs pulled. Another story that Yogananda gave, there was children, and they were playing at the waterfront, and this here cobra was hissing and trying to strike them, and the children were running and screaming, and the saint came and looked at the cobra and says, "That's no way to be." He says, "That, you know, you're not advancing spiritually by doing all this particular factors, scaring the children." He says, "Lead a nicer life. Don't go scaring the children." Well, about 6 months later, he comes back, and here's the snake. He sees the same snake. The snake's almost dead, beaten up, bloody, and things of this sort. And he says, "Well, what has happened?" He says, "Oh," he says, "Savant," he says, "Guruji," he says, "Deva," he says, "since you have come the last time," he says, "I have been on very bad times." He says, "The children come, they throw rocks at me. I can hardly survive." He says, "You can see I'm dying." And the saint, Deva, says, "Look," he says, "I didn't tell you not to hiss." So remember, there's times when you can hiss and you need to hiss, but your fangs can be pulled, you know. So towards self-realization, towards your existence, be of even temperament. Forgive. Don't hold grudges. Try to feel love for everything, for everybody, for everything. Remember, even the little insects have a right to live. But then they don't have a right to bite you either. It's like Mahatma Gandhi said that he believed in nonviolence. But he gave each one that came to his ashram there a fly swatter. He says he was unable to teach the mosquitoes this. So you be the watcher on the hill. And remember, your unbalanced forces in the occult are called the dwellers on the threshold. These are the beings within you that are unbalanced, and all force fields are personified, all states of awareness are personified, and you see them as a being. They will attack you. It's you attacking yourself. Your unbalanced forces are attacking yourself. And by feeling unselfish love, you bring this into balance. And remember, any state of awareness likes to make everybody else feel the state of awareness. When you're good and disgusted and angry and mad, you want to make everybody else angry and mad. If the wife is angry and mad, she sure soon makes the husband angry and mad, and then look what happens. But if two lovers fall in love and they feel this wonderful love pouring from them, they want the whole world to be filled with love. So you are the one who has this state of awareness. Control your state of awareness. If you don't like to be mad, stop being mad. Who has a better right to do it than yourself? And who wants to go around being mad all the time, killing yourself off? They have come to the conclusion that most of all of our physical troubles is frustration and stress. Causes all kind of problems with ourselves. And if you don't like somebody, you're in a state of stress. Like everybody. Forgive everybody of everything. You get along real well with yourself, and then other people begin to like you. There was once the woman, small town where I came from. She was a scorpion, and as they say in the ancient textbooks, there's no good scorpions. I know, I'm a scorpion myself. And she had married a man, but all of his relatives, she couldn't get along with them. They hated her, so she wanted a magical formula so that she could control and make them like her, see? So I told her a magical formula. The magical formula was the first technique that Yogananda teaches you to reach God consciousness, to move towards balanced self-consciousness. Very simple technique. She thought it was an act of magic. After 30 days of doing this, she thanked me for giving this magical formula whereby she could control the states of awareness of these relatives, because they started talking to her and they began to come to her house. And I made the terrible mistake by telling her it really was not a magical formula, that they hadn't changed, she hadn't controlled them at all, is what she had done. She had altered herself. People began to see that she was more pleasant to be around, and this is what she wanted. She didn't want this. She stopped doing it immediately and became her good nasty old self, so to speak. So you control your own state of awareness. If you're nice within yourself, you feel good within yourself, you radiate this to other beings. And other beings then will radiate back the same thing. The law of awareness is to become aware of. They become aware of whatever is stimulated by you or by anything else. And if you radiate peace and contentment and happiness within yourself, everyone that comes within your presence loves this radiation, becomes peaceful, becomes happy. And they might like you so much they want to move in with you, and then you have to go out until they... Any other thing before I go on to the next question? Okay.
Shellyji, were we ever as a species balanced?
No. This is uniqueness.
We started unbalanced?
Yes. The very act of self-conscious awareness and its very laws is a state of unbalance.
From the beginning?
From the beginning. The beginning is transfinite. It's beginningless, endless. If it had a beginning, anything that has a beginning of necessity must have an end. The spirit itself in its very original part is unbalanced. The Christians used to say, you was perfect that you became unperfect that you might become perfect again. Why go through such a foolish state? There was somebody who raised a hand over there.
Yes, I'd like to know, when you were talking about the different states of the waking, sleeping, Christ consciousness, God consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the avatars that have been, and like Jesus and Buddha and Yogananda and all the great teachers, are they in Christ conscious waiting for us to come to fulfill so we can all be in God consciousness at once? Or how do those levels work?
Well, all beings in God's cosmic dream, and we came into his dream, into his cosmos, by his divine grace. By this I mean, God created a cosmic dream. This is how the Buddhists or the Brahmins have said it. That God dreams, and when he breathes out, the cosmos comes into existence, so when he breathes in, it's dissolved. And each time he breathes out, the cosmos comes into existence again, and is more balanced than the time before. So each time that he creates the cosmos, it's in better balance, and eventually he will breathe a cosmos into being, and it will remain. And this scientists will call a steady state universe. And at this time, it is not steady state. It comes into existence and is withdrawn out and comes back into existence again. So it is not in a balanced state. So God, the cosmic dreamer who created this cosmic dream, is not in perfect balance, but as far as we're concerned, he is perfect balance. In other words, the difference between us and him is a tremendous amount. So he allowed us into his cosmic dream that we might learn his technique of unselfish love, his technique of balanced self-conscious awareness of bliss. And through this technique, we find and reach balance within ourselves. Now, this technique is extremely good, because when you move towards God, you feel this love, this all-loving force flowing towards you. And from a military point of view, you can call it a thought bomb. And it is very difficult to conquer, because the closer you get, you want to be what the thing is. And this is also unselfish love. You want to give all of yourself to him because he wants to give all of himself to you, see? I haven't found a way of overcoming this particular force field.
Does it seem then the more conflict too starts to arise when the closer you become to fight off what you need to let go of?
You might seem that a conflict arises. You merely become aware of these states, but all the time that you're becoming aware of this disturbed states of unbalanced existence within yourself, you are moving more and more towards balance. Let me, as an example, the difference between an average individual and a saint isn't too great. But if you see somebody that goes by and he says, "Behold, I am a saint," know that a sinner has passed you. Because a saint does not know that he is really more balanced. He's aware of how unbalanced he is yet. And this is important. In other words, you will never be able to judge yourself. Never judge yourself on your way towards self-realization, towards balance. You should judge yourself by how others look upon you. Remember, you're within yourself. A saint does not know he's a saint, but other people around him might think he's a saint. It's his behavior pattern. It's how many people he hates. And how disturbed he is by his outer environment. So if someone does something to him, this is why I say, forgive him. For by the grace of God, there go you. And you don't want to be that. And always look within yourself and seek peace. Be calm. If you are disturbed, breathe deep and slow. Remember, there's a relationship between your heartbeat and your breathing, about 4-to-1. The average person breathes about 18 breaths per minute. The heart is 4 times that, which is about 72. This is roughly speaking, unless you remember you're an athlete or something of this sort. This is Mr. Average Man. And so you come into a state of stress, breathe slow and deep. This brings your heartbeat down, and when your heartbeat comes down, it helps calm you off. And when you breathe slow and deep, like in deep meditation, it increases the oxygen in your bloodstream. That increased oxygen in your bloodstream burns up all the other types of chemicals that your glands are secreting, and helps you into existence. Now, normally, when you run into a problem of difficulty, you have a secretion, and the secretion says, run or fight. Today, we can't fight too well because of our culture, because of our civilization, and we can't even run too well, so we enter into a state of stress. So we have to control this state of stress by learning some technique of meditation. And as you advance forward, the amount of degree of your unbalance begins to diminish. But you will never know how far you have diminished. Other people around you will notice it.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Shelly, before this question, I had a 3-part question, and now another one has come up, and I wonder if I could ask all of them. Okay. Does our involvement affect God's involvement, or is God not in the process of evolving?
God is in the process of evolving. And as you evolve, of course you affect God. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Remember, I said that if you go into the wilderness and you reach God consciousness, you lift everybody else up a little bit. If you teach a technique to somebody else, how to reach balance, the very act that you have taught them helps you to reach balance. So it's important to help others. Remember, this is unselfish love. This is the best war weapon that I know. And if we could bring it around the world, we wouldn't have World War III. And so people who say, what can I do about a situation like this? Meditate, pray, get together, And do really in an unselfish way, not in a selfish way, remember, not because you're afraid to die or anything of the sort, but with unselfish love, love the enemy. Pour love to them. Of course, you can get together and then wish bad luck upon the enemy, and you strengthen the enemy, and eventually he'll bring bad luck to you. See, whatever your state of awareness is, this is what you're bringing to you. This is what you're creating in your outer environment. So control your state of awareness. Meditation is controlled awareness. So you're aware of what you want to be aware of. Like Yogananda said, that a real saint, if he stood up against the wall and the firing squad comes there, why, he's not disturbed. He can even leave his body before the bullets hit him. He says, but this is a state of existence he would not like to have take place, so he could feel the practice of it. It's quite unnerving when some, state of this takes place. So the theory of it and the practice of it is two different things. But for normal life conditions, you can easily accomplish it through meditation. As he says, meditate, meditate, meditate. And you got an excellent guru who can teach you how to meditate right here in Chicago all the time.
Don't go.
Okay.
I have a three-part question. Have you read The Course in Miracles? First of all.
What is the book?
Course in Miracles. It's a 3-volume.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, then I can't ask the other two.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Will you speak more about origins of separation, origins of karma, origins of disharmony?
From the beginning?
From the beginning.
No. Since self-conscious awareness in a spirit, first to express what a spirit is. A spirit is a self-existing one. And this is its law. It has no beginning, it has no end, it is transfinite. The best to express this, you take a triangle. A triangle has a number of factors to show how many factors it has. It has 3 points. That's 3. It has 3 sides. You already have 6 factors. It has 3 interior angles. It has 3 exterior angles. The sum of the interior angles is 180 degrees. The sum of the exterior angles is 900 degrees. I can keep on going. I think there's something like 32 factors associated with a triangle that mathematicians are aware of. But the most important factor of a triangle, it divides spaces into 2 parts. That which is inside the triangle from that which is outside the triangle. The space within the triangle is finite. The space outside the triangle is transfinite. Where the spirit is transfinite, but it is locked in finite existence that it might seek balance. By this cosmic dreamer who has created this particular cosmos, and we exist within his soul, within his memory banks. And the spirit, by its very nature, is without beginning, without end, and lives in transfinite existence. To express it is rather difficult. I'll go through the basis of transfinite existence. For instance, how many numbers are there? You can count from now to infinity. And when you reach the largest number that you can think of, you can always add one more to it. This is the first infinity. But they found that one infinity is not the greatest of infinity. They found out that the number of points in a line of any length is greater than our numbers to count it. This is infinity 2. And they have used the Hebrew letter Aleph to indicate infinity 1. That's Aleph 1. The second infinity they call Aleph 2. And then they found that the number of curves in space is greater than there are points in the line, or they're greater than there are numbers to count it. So this is Aleph 3. Now, as far as science goes, they can go up to Aleph 4, and they don't know anything beyond this. This is transfinite math, and there must be Aleph to the Aleph par, but we aren't wise enough to understand all these particular characteristics. But we know that in transfinite existence, the spirit has no beginning, has no end, and so it is a God in its own right, or a goddess, if you will. And it's in a state of unbalanced existence. And there are beings that have come into existence who have created cosmoses, and the cosmoses have ceased to exist. And there's this one being that came into existence which is more, instead of a father, a coexistent one. And this is what the New Age is going to begin to teach you. Remember, we're entering out of the Piscean Age into the Aquarian Age. And in the Aquarian age, God the Father is no longer permissible. God the coexistent one, God the brother, comes into existence because we're entering into a new brotherhood, wherein we realize a new state of conditions. And a greater degree of balance is going to take place. From this earth, most of the high states of unbalance will no longer be here. And instead of all the grades which exist from here, in other words, you can take and down some street in India can walk a Mahatma and can walk an Aborigine. Two tremendous differences in spiritual awareness. One who has knowledge of Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is the equivalent of the German, the French, and the English all put together in its understanding of words. And you have the Aborigine who has a vocabulary of 300 words, hardly above that of a gorilla. And they rub shoulders and shoulders together. Now, I like this kind of a world because you have a tremendous contrast. But in the New World, you'll have the Aquarian age, you'll have only about 3 levels, 3 stages in the school. We all know that practically all your wild animals, there's nothing can be done about it. They will no longer exist. Your biting insects as a whole will not exist. Many people might like this in the Aquarian age and the brotherhood of man, and death will have lost its sting. They will have found out that when they find this new planet, that mankind will advance scientifically enough and spiritually enough that he will no longer be afraid of death, and he'll be able to even communicate with those who have gone through transition. So it'll be an entirely different universe. The world of psytronics, is how I call other psychic phenomena, will be manifesting existence. And look what about 200 years has done with electronics. Think of what it's going to do with the new field of psytronics. There will be an entirely new field, a new world of existence where really is an expression of a much greater degree of balance, but not a very great existence for anyone who has a very high degree of humor. So I won't be around in that world. Does this help express what you wanted to know, or is there something you still...
One aspect also, and that is the origin of suffering, per se, the idea of...
Oh, suffering? Any degree of unbalanced awareness is suffering. Suffering is natural. Balance and unsuffering is the unusual. If you meditate, you don't suffer. For instance, I don't mean that the body that you inhabit might not suffer. Yes, it had a beginning, it must have a necessity to have an end. And when it dies, you could call this suffering. But then you find out when you meditate and you're in sasamanic state of awareness, you don't feel pain. It might be there, but you're not feeling it. They've even found that if you have a toothache and you suddenly take a deep breath and you hold your breath, you don't feel pain. See, at the top of your breath, at the bottom of your breath, these 2 points are the closest that you can get where you're wide awake to sasamana, and there is no pain at those exact moments. Doesn't last long, but for those moments, that pain ceases to exist. But if you can enter into sasamanic awareness, there is no pain.
But why are we ever without it? What is the origin and the beginning of the imbalance?
The origin, the beginning of unbalance is, there is no beginning of unbalance, it always was. Balance is uniqueness. As soon as you reach balance in certain states of awareness, I can come along and give you another state of awareness that you haven't balanced yet and start the problem all over again. This is ad infinitum. If you can maintain your state of unbalance, and I can't press any buttons to upset you, you're a saint. But I have many techniques to upset people's states of balance.
God too then is in balance.
Yes, God too, but he has reached a much higher state of balance than we. That's why we're in his cosmic dream. Now there's some beings who say that God sold us a snow job. Of course we know which side they're on. And they don't agree. Remember, you're an immortal one. You have no beginning, you have no end. If this is true, where's your memory banks? While you're in this body, you have been programmed not to remember them. Now, I can hypnotize you, and I can also take away some memory banks that I want to take away from you, and you won't know that I've done this. This is some of the things that you can do with the mind to show you how it can remember. I used to hypnotize people, and especially women. I like to hypnotize them for this one particular experiment. You see, women have kind of shoes which they put on, and if you change their shoes from the right to the left and left to the right, it's uncomfortable to walk. So I would hypnotize them, and I would say that when I pulled my earlobe 3 times here, you will take your left shoe, put it on your right foot, and take off your right shoe and put it on your left foot. And then I would see how long it would be between the time that I would be able to do this and they still would do this. So a year, maybe a couple of years would go by, and when the same group of people were together, I'd do like this, and 3 times, of course, and they would put their shoe, change it. And so I would say to them, why did you do that? And they'd always give me a very logical reason to them, which is illogical to everybody else. They say, well, they did it because it rested their feet. Now, you watch a woman who changes her shoe and try to walk. It's not going to rest anybody's feet at all. A man might get by with his boots, but if they're a little bit large, but not a woman. And they wouldn't believe that I had given a post-hypnotic suggestion at all. So then to do this, I would take and write it on a sheet of paper and have others write you too, and then put it in an envelope and put it in my pocket and then go through the same procedure, and then I would hand it to them after I had hypnotized them and the years had gone by, and they did that. They still didn't want to believe it. They thought that I was a magician and, I had found some way of slate writing like in the seance, and had... You can even send them into the astral world, and you can even send them back in time and talk to Socrates. I have done that, and they actually believe they had talked to Socrates. And they even in Czechoslovakia, they hypnotize people, and they send them back to some other great artist, and they talk to them or sculpture, and they learn this technique and come back, and it improves their technique and their art. And some of them really believe they have gone there and actually talked to the individual. So if I can do this, these beings are much, much better than I am. And you'd be surprised what they can do with you. But if you go into balanced self-conscious awareness by any technique, you begin to awaken up. And then you get in more control of your own dream, rather than being controlled. Almost everybody is controlled. Who wants to be a slave forever and forever and forever? But then forever is relative anyhow. It varies all over the place. What might be an infinity here, someplace else, is a fraction of a second. It says in the Bible, the Christian Bible of God, that 1,000 years in the awareness of God, 1,000 years in the awareness of man is but a day in the awareness of God. Mathematically, this says the difference in the time scan of God to man is 365,250 to 1. This means that it takes you 4 and almost a quarter days to equal 1 second in the awareness of God. Now remember, if you can get God's awareness, He will grant your wish, so to speak. But you have to really get out there and do something, get His attention. As Yogananda says, go out in the wilderness and yell if necessary. Don't do it here because they'll think something's wrong with you and put you away. But you have to have a gimmick. For instance, you want to be a burlesque queen. You can go to any beach and see more than you usually see in a burlesque show. So you have to have a gimmick. Like have a tiger slowly take your clothes off or something like that. Does that sort of answer your question? Okay, anyone else that wants to? Okay.
You've discussed the importance of forgiveness in attaining a balance. Could you talk a little about practically what you mean by that and how?
Say somebody has, you're married?
No.
Lucky. Say a friend of yours, see, has really in his anger has called you some pretty bad names or hit you on the jaw, knocked you down or something like that. Your natural instinct is to get up and hit him back, right? Don't. Forgive him. And immediately that you do, you have forgiven yourself of him. Now you no longer feel anger, but he hasn't forgiven himself for you. He still must suffer the karma of his action. I should say that the very basic law of self-conscious awareness is this. Whatsoever you do unto another, you do more so unto yourself, but at a different time and a different place. If you forgive someone, someone will forgive you of an act that you really shouldn't have done. But whatever you do, remember, to another, remember the energy, the transmitter is in you. And it's always stronger in you than it is someplace else. So whatever you do unto another, you do more so unto yourself. For instance, like say, and I like to bring up this, especially where a woman is concerned. We're back now several hundred years ago, and there's 2 women. And the husband has been ornery in both cases, undoubtedly come home drunk, tearing up what furniture they have, and so both of them are real mad at their husband, see? So one has a frying pan in her hand and the other has a skillet in her hand. The woman with the frying pan hits her husband over the head, and she, of course, has got a karma, Mercury, in adverse aspect to Mars, symbolically expressed. The other woman had a skillet in her hand, she hit her husband over the head, she broke his skull and killed him. It's the same symbol, Mercury, adverse aspect to Mars. Now they both are reincarnated again into the future. Of course, remember, the karma is not person to person, it's symbolic. Instead of person to person, you don't have to meet the same husband or anything like that. You just have to meet another man or another woman, depending whether you have gone into another type of sex in condition. Let's say both have become a woman again. And now the time of the karma is due and payable. The woman who hit the husband with the spatula, so to speak, he's liable just to knock her down. Nothing much has happened to her, except maybe her feelings hurt quite a bit and a sore jaw. The other woman is going to get killed. She has killed, now she is going to get killed. She has opened herself up to this karma. But if she had, each one had forgiven the husband, and decide you can't live with it, go home to mama, would be much better. Find another man to torment. That, of course, is my humor, you know. Okay.
When you mentioned about hypnotizing people and they go back and they think they talk to a famous artist and then they come back and their technique is improved, what actually happened? Like, who did they talk to, or how was their technique improved?
Well, let's take, for instance, one of these cases. You can hypnotize a person, and some people have a natural innate musical talent. So you can sit them down to the piano, and behold, they will play music, never having played a piano or the musical instrument before. If the person does not have musical talent, you can sit them down before the piano and they are enabled to play the music. When you train a person, they have been trained in a field of art. They have studied the field of art from the past to the present. In other words, they're learning how to be a painter, an artist. So now when you hypnotize them, they are calling upon all of the memory banks within them concerning everything that they had learned by the past artist, or what they have seen in his pictures, how his brush strokes are. Remember, every artist has like a handwriting which is different than any other artist, and you can tell who he is by the way he uses his paints and his strokes. All this information comes through to them in a much clarified way. In other words, it's all you're doing, you're gathering together in this individual all the memory banks that they have studied about this other artist, and they have talent. And as a result of this, and they're talking to the artist, that has given them a greater enthusiasm for the art because they have been in the presence, as they think, of a master. They have been in the presence of their concept of the master, which helps them. And it doesn't matter which art or which field. Remember, even most scientists get their best ideas from dreams or from intuition.
Isn't it possible to time travel, though, to go back into different times?
Oh, absolutely it is. It's just more difficult. And remember, the inner mind will fabricate whenever possible if the time and space continuum is not quite right to do so. But you can actually go back, yes. But it's still more difficult.
Can you, by going back and forgiving what happened in the past, do you not then change the future, your own future?
Yes. In other words, this is a law of karma. The intensity times the duration of karma, of the cause, we might say, must equal the intensity times the duration of the effect. When you go back, if you start doing it, it's like even praying or meditating. Meditating begins to diminish the karma. Does maybe not completely alleviate it, but it does help to reduce it. So it is possible, even by contrite prayer, not to get out of the karma, but to satisfy the law of intensity times duration. So if you know a certain event is going to come up into the future, and you meditate towards it with sincere effort, you can satisfy it because you have done it by prayer and mentally. You can express it mentally, spiritually, or physically, see? And so it's suffered out pretty much where you want. And so you can actually go back and make adjustments if you really want to. But it must be sincere. This is why I say that to find out your karmic patterns and to know yourself in a symbolic way is a help to solve your nature. And you can do this through dreams. You can also do it through astrology, or sometimes you find people who are quite psychic and they can use any modality, a crystal ball, throw the coins up in the air, throw sticks up, use astrology, it doesn't matter. They're able to help you and accomplish, spiritual salvation.
Nature basically is balanced, isn't it?
Nature is truly balanced, but it is not in the way you think. If you go into Sasamana and you look at nature, nothing is moving. If an airplane is traveling at 600 miles an hour and you go into Sasamana, the airplane is standing dead still. It's you are the needle in the record which is moving. This is what it looks like when you're in Sasamana. Time has ceased to exist. It's like this. See this cane? This is the beginning. This is the end of your life. These are the events of your life. You're going this way when you are in Iden Pengali. When you're in Sasamana, you're moving this way. All these events are happening at once. So your state of awareness is different. And as a result of this, you can begin to alter things. This is why the sage, when he had the cancer, was able to alter it. And in the same way, you can alter events. But you must do it in a symbolic manner in the world in which you are aware of. So, like you say, you can try and travel as one way of accomplish it, or you can do it in a number of different ways. By knowing, for instance, in astrology, you know you're running into an adverse aspect, start neutralizing it. It was said of Babaji, who is the father of Kriya Yoga, or the techniques which Kriyananda here teaches, that in the Himalaya mountains, one of his disciples was passing by the fire, and Babaji pushed him into the fire, and the other disciples were aghast at him doing such a thing as that. He says it was his karma to burn to death. He only got a slight burn. This, in other words, being there, meditating, he had alleviated enough of it, but there was still some karma left. And so he got a slight burn, which neutralized then. So you might be satisfying a lot of your karma, but who knows what the intensity is. By astrology, you can never tell what the intensity is. And sometimes the psychic cannot tell truly what the intensity of it is. And so you might have suffered out a great amount of it, and then it won't be as bad. The woman who hit the man over the frying pan, if she had suffered a great amount of it, she wouldn't be killed.
Is there a specific way to neutralize a bad aspect?
Yes, understand it, and then understand what the symbols mean, and then start going forth by prayer and by meditation to neutralize it.
This is probably a grotesquely insipid question, but do people who attain Christ consciousness end up getting crucified?
How is that? Do they, can they avoid getting crucified? Is that what you said? Well, if you hide your sainthood under a bushel basket, remember, if you are a Christ consciousness and you go about, everybody sees you. Well, you're judging yourself from his light, so you might say. He's in a balanced state of awareness. You come in contact with him, you realize what an evil demon you are. You can't afford to have such a being around to realize how bad you are all the time. Best thing to do, get rid of him. This is why they have gotten rid of all the avatars. So if you're in avatars, hide your head in a basket.
Was Adam the first disciple and God the first guru, and was he the first button pusher? And were there different truths transmitted then than there are now? And any different lesson?
No, basic truth. Symbolically, what you say, you can symbolically say it is true. Might not be literally true, but who knows what is literally true, but symbolically it's all right. And remember, even symbolically, Adam's first wife was not Eve, it was Lilith. You look it up in any dictionary. But this is symbolic truth too, remember.